Test 1, 2. You're listening to WHFS Bethesda, Maryland, and we're speaking with Dave Van Ronk, who is playing at the Cellar door this evening. How you doing, Dave?
Oh, great, perfect.
That's good. Dave, you've been around the music business for a real long time.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, I'm not Duke Ellington yet, 20 years, 22 years, something like that.
Uh-huh. And you came up through the whole village folk scene.
Yes, exactly.
Could you tell us a little bit about how it was in the early days?
Well, there was a lot of work and there was no pay. Well, it depends. In the 1950s, there was neither work nor pay. You played for friends, and you hung around Washington Square Park and played for anyone who would listen, and things like that. Later, clubs started to appear. There's something to do. Hold it a second.
Sure.
Monster goddamn drink of whiskey.
Just one?
Unless somebody else wants something.
Anybody?
Could I have a Molson beer? Because that's all I have in this place.
That's good stuff.
Yeah. Heineken's are good too.
Yeah, enough so that they don't have to keep on running up and down. They got a full house and everybody's going crazy.
So, Dave, your latest record that you have out to date is on the Philo label entitled Sunday Street. Would you like to tell us a little bit about what went into making it and how you came up with it?
I recorded that up in North Ferrisburg, Vermont. I suppose that's not to be confused with South Ferrisburg, Vermont, wherever that might be, which is where Philo has its headquarters. They have this enormous barn that they've rebuilt. Best natural acoustics of any studio I've ever worked in. It's the first time I've recorded in 13 albums or something like that, where my guitar really sounded, right to me. And it was really very nice. There was no pressure. I recorded precisely what I wanted to record. In effect, I produced it myself. And well, when you produce a record yourself, you have to, it's very nice and all that. But if you lay an egg, you have no one to blame it on but yourself. Also, as a rule, the producer is expected to pick up the tab on expenses and so on. But no, that wasn't the case. Philo took me out to dinner each night and stood me to a vintage bottle of Chateau Margaux before I went into the studio, which helped a lot.
Well, let's listen to a couple of tracks from Sunday Street and then come back and talk some more, okay?
All right.
Okay, we're back. We're speaking with Dave Van Ronk. You're listening to WHFS Bethesda, Maryland. A lot of your early influences, I guess you can pretty much pick up on them. You do a Blind Blake tune.
Mm-hmm.
That'll Never Happen No More. Would you like to tell us something about who really got you into music, your early influences?
Well, it started really with an interest in traditional jazz. I started playing tenor banjo and later rhythm guitar with small traditional, or if you will, Dixieland jazz bands. And in the course of doing that, I was collecting old records. And when you collect old records, you run across all kinds of things. If you go out to get an old Louis Armstrong record, or King Oliver, or Clarence Williams and the Blue Five, or something like that, you find in the adjacent bins old blues records. So out of curiosity, and because they were cheap at the time, I would pick up the occasional old blues record, Blind Lemon Jefferson or Furry Lewis, someone like that. And I got very interested in that, possibly because playing rhythm guitar is a rather dull business. they're going chong, 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 chong all the time. Everybody else is having a ball. And you just go chong, chong. And I listened to Furay Lewis and Mississippi John Hurt and the old blues records from the 20s. And these guys were having a ball. They were playing guitar and they were singing. And I wanted to do that.
Right, we were speaking earlier about your renditions of Joni Mitchell songs. Joni did a sort of a tribute to Furay Lewis on one of her latest albums. Hijira, I think is the name of it. Furay Sings the Blues. Do you know Joni?
Oh, yeah.
Because I know you do make it a point to do some of her songs, and they're very nicely done.
Thanks. I've known her for a long time very well.
How about Bob Dylan? You worked with him in the early days?
Well, yeah, we hung out a lot together. I don't think we're ever on the same bill. That is for pay. It was a kind of a thing where he'd be one place and I'd be down the block, and he'd come do a guest set, or I'd come do a guest set. But we'd do a few things together, and we hung out a lot.
You also have quite a few albums out on the Vanguard, the label, and Fantasy just put out, well, a few years back, a double set record. What were the early Vanguard years like?
Well, since fortunately tapes are editable, I'll tell you this, I never did record for Vanguard. Mm-hmm. There are a couple of anthology records, Blues at Newport, Newport Folk Festival things where I do a couple of cuts, but I never have actually done an album for Vanguard. As for the fantasy thing, well, the fantasy thing are reissues of two albums that I made originally for Prestige. One in '63 and the other one in '65, I think.
And that's when the folk thing was just taken off. Hootenannies were fashionable back then. I'm sure you worked with Peter, Paul, and Mary.
Yeah. Both severally and individually. They all took their turns as solo performers.
They just put out a reunion album.
Yeah, I know. I don't know. I haven't heard it, but Long Mad Wave. I'm very fond of them.
Well, let's listen to some of your earlier material, and then we'll come back.
Pass over those two glasses.
Oh no.
Oh, shit.
That's about 6.
Let's see. Okay, you're listening to WHFS Bethesda, Maryland. My name's Thomas, and we're speaking with Dave Van Ronk, who is down at the Cellar door this evening. Dave, we were speaking earlier that you never went electric like some of the folkies have today in the 70s. Why is that?
Well, I did. I took a brief flyer with it. I had a group called the Hudson Dusters. Glad it said. It's good for the rug.
Yeah.
I had a group called the Hudson Dusters, and we made one album for Verve Forecast, which I liked and still do. I mean, I probably have the only copy extant of the damn thing. And we went on the road with the band for a while, and we did the standard rock and roll, went through all the standard rock and roll motions. We died the death of 1,000 cuts. Actually, we weren't too bad in the studio, but on stage, I've always had a great deal of difficulty performing on stage with other people. One thing, I know too much about musicians to ever trust another damned musician on the stage with me at the same time. And I'm just not used to that. I'm used to being up there alone, and I like it. And so we struck the set. It wasn't working out financially, and I was not musically unhappy, but I was personally very unhappy, psychologically very unhappy with it.
I see. Do you have any future plans as far as a new record coming out that we can look forward to, or anything?
There will be a new record, and it will be fairly soon, but I don't have any specific plans. When, it's one of those things, I'm waiting for Mr. Wright.
Oh dear. How about Eric Anderson and those guys? You hang out with them
I
today?
haven't seen Eric in almost 4 years. Last time I saw him was in the village, and we went out and we tied on a really good one together. I hear he just got back from Japan, where he did magnificently well. I guess they like him because he's tall. And I'd love to see him. I know he's back on the circuit again. I know I will be seeing him soon. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, you were definitely one of the innovators of folk music, and I'm sure anyone will attest to that who knows anything about the beginnings of folk music. And it's good to see you still making the rounds, man.
I enjoy it. Yeah, I stopped for a while. I was going crazy.
That's
Literally going crazy. And so I decided I would become a guitar teacher for a while, and I did. I became a guitar teacher for almost 2 years. And I really got incredibly bored with the repetition of it all. Because, I mean, really, if you're going to teach people conscientiously, you have a system. And I had a system. It was a good system, too. By God, I got pretty good results. But the thing is, I had to do the same thing over and over again. And so the sheer boredom of it was getting to me. And so I just decided, I spent most of my adult life in training, in effect, to be a performer. That's what I do best. And I think I better get back out on the road. And that was a couple of years ago, and I've been on the road now for the better part of 2 years, and I've never enjoyed it more.
Well, we wish you the best of luck with anything that you take on in the future.
Thanks.
And hope to see you in D.C. real soon.
Thanks.
Let me ask you this. I'm going to edit all this, and switch it around. What inspired Teddy Bear's Picnic?
Well, I'll tell you, I can't remember the man's name. He's a Philadelphia boy, and he's an incredibly good finger picker. And I'm very embarrassed that I can't remember his name. I saw him come out on stage at the Main Point in Bryn Mawr, Pennsylvania, about 6 years ago or something like that. And man, he not only did it, but he played it solo on the guitar. And I said, well, what have we here? And I cupped it. But I'd known the song ever since I was a kid. I really wish I could remember his name, because it's such a drag not to be able to credit him. But I didn't know him all that well, and I only heard him a few times.
The stuff that is out on Vanguard, did someone put that out behind your back?
Oh, no. When you do one of those festivals, you sign a release allowing whichever record company has the contract to record it, to record and release your stuff. Now, if you don't want your stuff to be recorded and released, you don't have to sign the contract. And there's a fee. There's a nominal fee. They don't. They're not going to. You're not going to open a Swiss bank account with what they give you, but it's not for nothing. No, that was a fair deal.
Okay, I'm going to edit all this. If you do a station identification for us, I'd sure appreciate it.
Sure.
I'll write it down for you. Anything you want to say? All I can say.
I can't think of a goddamn thing.
I know.
I'm just wondering when John is going to get.
This one too. You were listening. Okay, hello, this is Dave Van Ronk. You are listening to WHFS Defense to Maryland.
Hello, this is Dave Van Ronk. You are listening to WHFS Defense to Maryland. Hi, this is Dave Van Ronk. You're listening to WHFS Defense to Maryland. Merry Xmas. Happy whatever next year is.
Would you do this one for me?
Let's take the Christ out of Xmas.
Okay.
I'll use my key.
I'll huff and I'll puff.
Oh, I love breaking up interviews. This is one of my
Hello,
favorites.
this is Dave Van Ron. You're listening to Thomas on WHFS, Bethesda, Maryland.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
Listen, the next time you come into Washington, you're gonna have to come up to the station and spin records.
Love to.
Would you?
I'd love to. Would have loved to have done it this time, man. Just didn't have the organization for it. We drove up from Norfolk, and I don't know, 3 drive. I would always get messed up on the beltway.
Well, at least you're driving the gigs and taking your time.
Well, yeah, well, the time is being taken, that's for
I'll
sure.
get an SS3
There's no pressure.
outside for you anyway.
No pressure. Well, good luck again, Dave. Thank you.
So who's in the bed? The ghost?
If you give me an address or something, I'll send you
Always both.
what I can make out of this
Sure,
with.
sure.
I'll put some records on it, you know, and put it on a cassette.
If, as a matter of fact, if you
First show.
Test one,
So you'll open them both and we'll close them both. And let's go on at about 5. Reasonable?
5? Well, okay, I'll try.
Okay.
That's pretty short. But if John had showed up, he wouldn't have had much more time.
Yeah, but, well, I think Carolyn here still. Don't watch the show.
I've just got a 5-minute call.
Can't do it?
Well, okay. I'll try.
Hey, I can slow down my timetable for this.
Yeah. I mean, we're. Go ahead.
Hello, this is Dave Van Ronk. You're listening to WHFS, Bethesda, Maryland. Hi, this is Dave Van Ronk. You're listening to WHFS, Bethesda, Maryland. Merry Xmas. Hello, this is Dave Van Ronk. You are listening to Thomas on WHFS, Bethesda, Maryland.
Thank you. Appreciate it.